السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. As we are given the situation and the circumstances that we are in a type of i'tikaf and ghar Hira of the Prophet ﷺ as he was secluded in the acts of worship. Ramadan is just around the corner and we are just half a month away. The month that we have been thinking about and talking about for the past few months, and we started making dua actively by the beginning of Rajab, last month, and here we are just 2 weeks away from this blessed month of Ramadan. In Ramadan, as I opened the talk with i'tikaf and Hira, the Prophet ﷺ was given this holy Quran in the month of Ramadan on the 27th night, or perhaps the 27th night, Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, when the Quran was revealed down from Lawh al-Mahfuz to the first heaven, and then slowly was given to the Prophet ﷺ, and it began at the Hira cave. And in Ramadan, we also do i'tikaf, which is seclusion and staying away from everything else but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and engaging in acts of worship and limiting yourself to a very specific place. Now we are in somewhat that situation where we have to be in our homes for the most part, and for most of us, and also we are in the 15th night of Ramadan. Of Sha'ban. We are in the 15th night of Sha'ban, just before the month of Ramadan. Now this night is a very special night. This night, it was special from the time of the Prophet ﷺ until this day. We have witnessed, in the history has witnessed, that on this day, on this night, and the following day, and in particular the night that follows the 15th of Sha'ban, which is tonight, according to most who are following global or calculation, is the night where everyone would be actively in ibadah, in acts of worship, actively praying to Allah, actively in salah, actively in supplication, actively in seeking Allah's forgiveness, actively seeking Allah's provisions for one's soul and one for one's body and for the mind. And they will spend a lot. And even I witnessed as a child in Mecca that the Haramain, in particular Mecca, the Masjid al-Haram will be full on particular 2 nights, Laylatul Qadr and the 15th of Sha'ban. And in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, this name is known as Shab Bara'at. Bara'at, it means to be set free, to be purified. Bara'ah. This indicates from a particular verse in the Quran, according to some of the Mufassirun. Most of the Mufassirun talk about Surah Al-Dukhan, where it starts, Hamim wal-Kitab al-Mubin, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatin mubarakatin, that we have revealed this Quran on a blessed night, Fiha yufraqu kullu amrin hakim, that in this night Allah disperses the order from the wise, or the wise order. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala disperses it out to the angels to carry out the decree that He has for His creation. According to Ikrimah, one of the great Mufassir, interpreter of the Quran, and some other Mufassirun as well, their view is that this is indicating to the 15th of Sha'ban. However, most of the scholars have taken that this verse indicates to Laylatul Qadr, because we know for a fact that the Quran was revealed in Laylatul Qadr. Inna anzalnahu fi Laylatul Qadr, as the other verse in Surah Al-Qadr Allah indicates to. However, even if we take this isolated tafsir, which is accepted by many, um, it indicates that this night is a very special night. Laylatin Mubarakah. It's a special night. Also, there are many ahadith that indicate to the fadila, the virtue of this special night. There was a practice that I mentioned that practically this was revered, this was looked at as a special night. Um, but we have other ahadith that um, strengthen this view. Um, Many of those ahadith are not of a very strong standard, meaning that they're not a sahih hadith, meaning their sanad, their chain of narration is not a very strong chain. But however, if you take all those ahadith and put them together, it's hard to deny that there is a virtue for this. It's hard to deny the virtue of this particular night, even if there are few weak ahadith. Combining them together, it makes it a strong argument. So therefore, the scholars say that the virtue of this, taking from all those ahadith, is acceptable, it's practical. And if you look at the ahadith, some of the ahadith we'll go over quickly. The first hadith that I would like to mention is the Prophet ﷺ going to Al-Baqi' Al-Gharqad. Baqi' Al-Gharqad is the graveyard where more than 10,000 Sahaba buried there. Some of the Prophet ﷺ's family members are buried there. His children are buried there. The Prophet ﷺ went out and he was missing on that night. And Aisha radiallahu anha, she says, I felt that maybe he is gone to another of his wives. And so I went out to see where he was, and I saw him in Baqi al-Gharqad raising his hand, making dua. That's what he was doing. He went out to see his companions, those who left before him, those who are resting there. He went to make dua for them. He went to supplicate on their behalf. He went to make istighfar for them. He made dua. So that was a special night that he went out of his way at the night where he usually spent at home. He went out to the graveyard and spent some time over there, and actually spent a long time. So that's one hadith. The second hadith that I would like to mention is the forgiveness on that night. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives so many people that the hadith suggests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks upon and gazes upon his servants on that night. يَطَّلِعُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِبَادِهِ فِي لَيْلَةِ النِّصْفِ مِنْ شَعْبَانَ, the night that makes it the mid of Sha'ban. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gazes upon his servants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then forgives so many people, to the extent that he forgives so many to the amount of the hair on the tribe of Kalb, of their sheep. The amount of hair of their sheep, that's a lot of hair, because that tribe of Kalb, they were a tribe known that they used to have a lot of sheep and a lot of lambs, and these animals have a lot of hair. And he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives so many people to the amount of the hair that is on the sheep of the tribe of Kalb. Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives so many people, So on this night, is recommended to do a lot of istighfar, to seek Allah's forgiveness. But this hadith and other ahadith, similar meaning, indicate that Allah does not forgive certain people. And that's something really to think about it tonight. Number one is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this particular hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentions two people. One is man yushrik billah, mushrikun, that a person who associates partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who does shirk, who associates partners with Allah, Allah does not forgive. And that's very clear indication from the different verses of the Quran. And the second person, mushahin, a person who keeps grudges and ill feeling towards other people. Many meaning of that. The person who he has envy towards other people, he feels bad for other people, he wishes bad for other people. So all of those different meanings, it falls under the word mushahin, a person who just doesn't wish good for other people. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive. That person Allah does not forgive. And from the other ahadith, from the different narrations, there are other people that are mentioned. One is the person who is the fornicator, the person who commits fornication, zina, and the other that is mentioned is the one who is a regular drinker, a person who drinks and he's drunk most of the time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mudmin al-khamr, a person who does not, Allah does not forgive on that night. And one of the other persons that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive, qati'u rahim, a person who cuts ties with his kin, with his relatives, with his close family members. Allah does not forgive that person. And some of these are also mentioned on Laylatul Qadr. That is the even more powerful night, a more prestigious night that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hopefully that gives us all the tawfiq to be on that night. That even on that night Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive that person who cuts his ties with close relatives. And the last thing that I would like to mention from those categories that Allah does not forgive is the one who is a disobedient to his parents or her parents. So these are the things to make istighfar and to seek Allah's forgiveness of any of the sins that we may have committed, and to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this blessed night to give us a life that is actually worth living, a life that will be fruitful and beneficial, not for just for myself, but for other people. خَيْرُ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَنْفَعُ النَّاسِ. The best of the people are those who are beneficial to others. So we want to be that person. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this blessed night that He gives us the ability to be protective and be forgiven and pardoned from all the different calamities and trials and tribulations, and also from the inner diseases, from the sins, from the minor and the greater sins, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purifies us and forgives us and makes us one of those people that He has forgiven on this special night. So last thing I would like to mention about some of the things to do on this night. One thing to clarify, there is no hadith or no ayah or any indication of the from the sunnah to perform any particular act of worship. So there are two separate things. The fadila we already established. The virtue of this night, we already established it from the verse, the interpretation of some of the mufassirun, and a few hadith that I mentioned. The virtue of that of the 15th night of Sha'ban, that's already established. Now, this is a separate issue of what are the acts that you should do. For instance, in Ramadan, we have Taraweeh that we do an extra, and we do extra recitation of the Quran. So those are the things that are recommended. However, in this night, in the 15th of Sha'ban, there is no particular dua or particular ibadah that is prescribed to us. Now, this is not to say that you shouldn't do anything. You just sit back, relax, and do nothing, and say that there is nothing that is asked from us to do. However, there are many things to do. If this night is a special night, then it means you should do something extra. So there are a few recommendations that I will give from my perspective. You could figure out other things, inshallah. A lot of you may have already plans to do certain things, but a few things that I would like to share. Number one is to pray a few extra rak'ats tonight from now until tomorrow morning. For those who are following local sighting, if you are celebrating tomorrow, the 15th night of Sha'ban, go ahead and do it tomorrow. For those who are doing it tonight, I'm talking about them, inshallah. So tonight, try to do a few extra rak'ats of ibadah. Before Isha, Isha is already entered, but from now until Fajr, before Fajr, pray 2 rak'at, 4 rak'at, Salat al-Tahajjud, 2 rak'ats of Ishraq. It's better than the whole world and what it contains. 2 rak'ats of Tahajjud. And the second thing to do is to recite the Quran, recitation of the Quran. Try to spend a few more minutes in Tahajjud, or perhaps before going to sleep, or perhaps after Fajr. But at least from now until Fajr, try to do at least a few more rak'ats, extra rak'ats of Salah, with the intention of Tahajjud or any other intention, or just regular 2 rak'ahs nafil, 4 rak'ahs nafil, and add a little bit of more recitation in that, add maybe a page or two. So you are praying and also doing the recitation of the Quran. And the third thing is to make istighfar, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. And in general, dua. Make a lot of supplication dua, in particular if you're waking up for tahajjud, make a lot of that dua. If you can't, at least before going to sleep, make your intention for tahajjud and make your supplication, say your du'as before going to sleep. And then, inshallah, if you wake up early, you do all of these things: istighfar, recitation of the Quran, and making salah, and doing a lot of du'as. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of us on this special night, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us provisions that will be beneficial to us, and that will be blessed, and that will be blessed for us, and it will be barakah in it, and that we have life that is blessed, that we use that life and this time that we have in this world to do the right things and to please our Lord, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that He protects us and the entire ummah and all those who are suffering around the world, whether it's at home or abroad or anywhere else, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for all of those who are suffering, and gives them afiyah, gives them well-being in their body and their soul and their mental situation, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserves them, and that gives them shifa, and gives shifa to all those who are sick in our community and those who are in the hospitals and elsewhere, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes and uplifts this calamity from the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I think this is one of the du'as that you should focus on. Ameen, ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.